can't sleep without my mouth guard and my CPAP machine.
I just saw something.
Pop.
Pop. Okay, so I just saw something that is supposed to be better than the CPAP machine. Have you seen this?
Yeah. The button thingy.
No, it's like a mouth guard,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not one of those like good for all. That's not good. But the cause of snoring is because your jaw slides back.
Mm-hmm.
So your CPAP machine is just blowing air through that.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold your jaw forward the whole time, that's not a problem.
That's
What does mouth taping help?
I wear a mouth guard.
No,
No,
okay.
I wear a mouth guard. I used to just do the CPAP, but then I did have jaw issues, so now I go with the mouth guard and the CPAP, and I sleep like a baby now.
Yeah.
Again,
It's thing called. It's this thing. It looks weird. It's blue. It's called Better Sleep. I don't.
That looks like
I don't
a sex
get paid
toy.
for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does, but like
It
it's
looks
like,
like
a
looks like
mouth.
Looks like a sex toy.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you
but
sure it's not what it is?
I'm no. I watched the whole infomercial on it, and I'm like, I am getting my.
She's
this.
sold.
I watched the whole infomercial.
Sold. That's funny.
That's lovely. So.
But maybe you don't even need that whole big machine. Maybe you should try it.
Do you think part of the good sleep comes from the whir of the CPAP though? The
No,
noise?
I could sleep. I can sleep. It doesn't matter. I
Really?
can sleep in total silence. I could sleep with. I mean, I go to Ellen's still watching TV, and I'm going to sleep. So that's not an issue.
I have to have TV on.
Yeah, I like having a fan on. She doesn't.
Yeah.
So the fan doesn't really happen so much. So
I need sleep medication to sleep
Yeah.
anymore these days. I never thought that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
You know, like I could fall asleep anywhere. I almost thought I was like narcoleptic at times.
Yeah.
You know, anytime, doesn't matter, any position. And then now I'm 38 years old, and
Are you on your phone before you fall asleep?
No.
No.
We don't have TV. We don't do phone. We just get into bed, fan on,
And go to sleep. I can't.
well,
do
that's
that.
what we try to do.
Do you read?
not on Temu.
No.
Okay.
Do you
I
read
usually-
at all?
No, that's all.
No.
I do all that stuff on the couch before we move to the bed.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a bunch. I have received got a bunch of books over Christmas. I've been trying to dive into those and not be on the phone at night and read books and whatever. So, but then and have football on in the background. So that's what I've kind of been working on. And and then I got my fireplace. It's like I really don't want to leave the house. I just don't.
Yeah, that's how I am.
It's
My
like
heated blanket, I'm
when it's
quickly
zero
becoming very old.
outside or whatever. And if you watched Brent Clare, he said on our weather for the how's the weather up there, he says he's expecting multiple significant snowfalls throughout January and February.
Yeah.
So
Yay.
a lot, and this weekend maybe 1 to 2 inches.
Yeah.
So it's gonna. But we're due. I mean, we have had some pretty mild winters lately, really.
I mean, I don't mind the snow. I don't like this when it snows a bunch and then
it just gets
it's
cold.
real cold,
Yeah.
and nothing melts and it's gross looking. And when you look outside, you just don't want to go anywhere. And then when you do go outside, you're like, it's not that bad. And then you stay outside for a little bit and you're like, oh, thank God for a warm house.
But I would take this as opposed to being in LA right now.
Oh,
That's awful.
What a
Have you seen
nightmare.
those pictures?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they're talking like right now the pattern is the size of Manhattan. That is where the fire is right now. It's like 17,000 acres or
Hasn't it
something.
said something like not a single one has been completely extinguished?
no,
Yeah.
because they don't have water in their hydrants.
You're by an ocean. How do you not have water? I just don't get that.
Doesn't somebody own the water
I know a
there?
business
The ocean?
that can provide hydraulic power units that can pump that shit.
Would
right
that be
up to those
John Henry
fires.
Foster?
Yeah, John Henry
Okay.
Foster,
There you
shameless
go.
plug.
We did do
Also, whatever happened to, what's that chemical called that they put colorant into so they can see where they've dropped it? Like helicopters come by and drop that shit on the
I know
fire.
what you're talking about, yeah.
You know, where's that?
Yeah.
Where are these measures to at least like contain? You think that it doesn't take a genius like Ashley Conrad to ask these questions. I'm sure they are asking them, but where's the water?
I
If
mean,
you
salt
don't
water
have-
puts out fires.
Yeah.
So like you said, hook
Yeah.
a John Henry Foster pump up to the
Yeah.
ocean and start
Pump-
How
putting the
close
fire
are
out.
that
they
shit.
to the ocean?
It's not too far.
Not far.
It's not too far that you couldn't,
Run
come
trucks.
up with some kind of contraption to
Yeah,
carry
or
it through
trucks,
hoses.
or put it in a truck, take
Have
it there,
you
and
heard
back and
anything
forth.
about somebody actually owning the water, or is that just
The ocean?
No, the city
actual-
water.
Yeah, like something like the company Wonderland or something like that. Like the people that do the pistachios and I don't know. I just read something.
I don't know.
about this
I know
because
that
was
they
on
have,
TV.
No, I
you know,
haven't heard
for
that.
lots of years now, they have limits on how much you can water. Like you can't water your yard for so long. Like there are rations to the water supply. So I don't know what that's in. I don't know how that comes into play, but obviously they don't have the resources necessary to contain or fight this, which is really unfortunate in a place like LA or anywhere really. But you would think that, I guess this just goes to show you can't rely on the government for much, right, anymore. There's a lot of things that you have to be able to take on yourself. And I don't know what that means. Is like I'd be catching rainwater and like set up some kind of containment around my house, some kind of something.
I mean, their water source is primarily the Colorado River, I think, and then from the Rockies and stuff. That's where they get the most of the state's water comes from that way. I mean, we're again, we're lucky because we live next to the Mississippi and we just run it through the filter plant, and it's handled. So, but you really do take it for granted. We take the river for granted a lot here for a lot of reasons, but especially at a time like this when those people are out there just struggling. And what I've seen is people, it's obviously it's LA, so there's going to be a lot of celebrities and stuff like that out there. But I mean, I've seen like guys and people who are losing their houses, and some people are like cheering that they're losing their houses because they don't believe. They don't agree with a certain celebrity's political point of view or something. It's like, just be a human being, for the love of God.
Yeah.
They lost their house. I mean, they lost all their stuff, and I don't care if you're left, right, center, whatever. I mean, that's just be a person, for the love of God.
So I'm ashamed that I said you can't rely on your government because it is strongly politicized. Unfortunately, it is a human. This is a human issue, but there are people blaming lack of preparedness on the part of the government, and they're using it to divide even further.
Sure.
And it's really, really sad that something like this is used to divide even further. But it is going to happen because that's just unfortunately the world we live in. That being said, where the hell are the solutions here, and who's not stepping forward? I think how long has this been going on now? Days?
Week, maybe?
A week? Yeah, it's too long.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's just
Has
something.
it been declared a national disaster yet?
I don't know. I'm
I
sure
would
it's
say.
going to be. If not now, it will be soon. But still, it's like, okay, it's a national disaster. What are you going to do about it? What's that do?
Doesn't that
It
give
gets you
them
federal resources. Is
Yeah,
what it
but
does.
FEMA
But
is
still,
out of money,
Yeah.
just like LA is out of water. So what do you do when resources run out? That's what I'm saying. You can't always rely on somebody else to fix your problem. So as a homeowner, it's kind of like around here when we are expecting some flooding or something. People makeshift their own little levees or their own blockades around their houses and their property and blah, blah, blah. That's what I would be doing to whatever extent I could be there, right? Like, you got to take things into your own hands at some point.
But I mean, they're even talking about the Rams have a playoff game coming up, and they're talking about having to move the playoff game. And again, that's so insignificant in the terms of somebody like losing their property and their possessions and stuff. But again, it's if they don't get it under control soon, there's going to be. I mean, and again, how do you recover from that? Again, you're talking about a chunk of land in the middle.
Miles and miles and miles.
Of right near the second largest city, that's the size of basically the footprint of Manhattan. So it's like, how do you replicate that?
And of course, you can't believe everything you read, but insurance companies are already.
Insurance
denying.
companies were canceling before the fires because the conditions were so ripe.
Yeah.
Insurance companies were saying, peace out. Your policy's done.
Yeah, your policy's done. So then you have people, rich, poor, whatever, who are screwed. Then I saw something else. It was like, how do you fix the homeless population? Fires. So conspiracy theories are just that. Until all this stuff starts adding up.
Wouldn't this increase the homeless population?
No, because people have to be driven out. So then that county is not experiencing any.
I would think, though, then people would drive in if it's, like,
it's uninhabitable.
Deserted. Yeah, but, like, wouldn't that lead people that...
Not in Palisades, because there's nowhere to even be.
But before this, California was already like the number one state in terms of people leaving. Because Florida, Texas, and the Carolinas and Tennessee are the top states where people are moving to. Illinois is pretty high up there in the exodus as well, but it's not nearly as bad as California. So, again, if you didn't have any reason to beforehand, if you're sitting there and say my insurance company didn't cancel my policy and my house got whacked and I was going to get money for my house or whatever, would I rebuild there? Would it so expensive? Heck no. Why would you? I mean, and again, it's California expensive. I have relatives who live out there, and California expensive is just a whole different. It's a whole different thing out there.
Yeah, they crank it to 11.
Oh my gosh! I mean, from gas price, anything. It's you out there, and it's just like, again, really nice houses, but it's like, that's $1 million for that house.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, all my favorite stand-up comedians have, it's like a mass exodus. They're moving to Austin and different places.
Nashville.
Yeah, because it's so expensive, but also people are just fed up with kind of the agendas, I guess, and free speech and blah, 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 blah. So it all kind of compounds to make LA not look very attractive, which is, it's sad because it's been a mainstay and it's got, that is Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it sucks. I mean,
And
it
it is
sucks all the way
beautiful.
around.
I mean,
but,
it's an absolutely gorgeous place, but still, it's like when you've got something like this that happens, and then earthquakes and all that. It's like, man, it's like with her. It's like with being in Florida for hurricane season.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, it's nice for most of the time, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'm fine with just getting a few inches of snow every now and then, and it's going to be cold and it's going to be hot in the summer. I'm okay with that. I like the change of seasons, and whether it's here or on the other side of the river, I'm perfectly fine with that. But we talk about trying to get people to come to Quincy, and we talked about the exodus, but now we were talking about trying to get people here, and what do you do to make that happen, and how do you make this a desirable community? And I know this is something we've all talked about a lot, how you guys are grown and born and raised here, and been here most of my life, and we're all very passionate about, this is a nice place to live, and just because we don't like the way something happens doesn't mean we are shitting on our community, and you guys have been very, very vocal about that. So we want to talk a lot about how we make Quincy a better place to live. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of that here in the not too distant future.
Yep, absolutely.
I think our guest is going to, you want to talk a little bit about our guest to kind of tee it up?
Well, I tried to tee it up a little bit on Coffee Talk, and it just ended with, he's big fun.
Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yes. So I think I'm going to stick it with that.
Yeah.
I would like you.
Very, very intelligent fella,
Yeah.
and a good time to. He's fun to speak with.
This isn't our first time speaking with him.
Yeah,
This is our first time partying with him.
Yeah.
This is also the first time with his new job, and I want to ask him if he's ready to move on yet, because it's not a again, the guy that had the job before him is a long time, and I don't see how he stayed in the job as long as he did, and it is a hard job. It's like when the guys and the ladies running for mayor, it's like, really, what do you want to do that for?
Yeah.
This doesn't look like any fun.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. So, but we'll be back and have our guest right after this.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
Would you like to introduce our guest?
It's Mr. Jason Parrott.
How are you? Good. Nice to be
Quincy
here.
Planning Director. Did I get that right?
You did get that right. Planning Director, Director of Planning and Development, however you want to announce it, that works for me.
And you're still okay with the job?
I am. We're, what are we in, the 9th day in?
That's good.
The post-Bevelheimer era, and we are still moving forward.
You miss him?
Chuck was such a good person. I mean, that's, I think, the number one thing. As I was learning more and as I was kind of trying to grow and look at this job potentially in the future, I would come up with scenarios and think in my mind, okay, how am I going to handle this? So I'd get it in my mind and I'd say, Chuck, can I steal a couple minutes from you? He'd say, absolutely. Pull up a seat. I'd explain the scenario. He'd say, now you need to think about this, you need to think about this, and you need to think about this. And it's always those types of things. Anytime I would go in there, he would be willing to talk. Residents, anyone I just watched them come in, he would always take the time. He would try to hear their concerns, let them know, hey, let me see what I can do. Let me see how I can help. And he was just so giving of his time. And so it's been a change in our office not having him around, because he has been there for almost 30 years. And so now we're moving forward. Even people walking in, they're like, I'm ready to say hi to Chuck. And then I realize Chuck's at home. So he's not in here to see us. So
Hopefully he's enjoying himself at home.
hopefully he is. So we have done our best to not have to bother him. He's always said, you know what, you've got my cell phone, you can reach out at any point. But it's like you've done your service, you've left. enjoy your time.
Since you've moved up a chair, so to speak, I know the city just made an announcement that they're going to kind of keep a sharpen the pencil on the budget a little bit. So are they going to backfill the position yet?
We are hopeful. We've been in talks about that because it's that the planning side of it has had 3 people forever. And so right now we have myself, we have Sherry Reller, who's a community development planner, and we are hopeful to be able to fill that spot because there's just so much that goes on that we're a part of, that having that third person, I mean, as soon as we can do that, we would love to, but we also understand there's a lot of financial side that goes into it, and you can't just say, oh yeah, we're automatically going to do that. We're in budget season right now, so that has to be looked at. But that is something that we continue to push. We believe there is support for it. I think a lot of it will come down to how the numbers play out.
So what exactly was your title before that? I'm sorry.
Just before this, assistant planning director.
Okay. And so you were kind of on your own, doing things on your own, because you said you went to Chuck a couple of times. Were there ever times like you were taking care of something and maybe you and Chuck didn't see eye to eye?
Oh, there have been several times. You can look at Plan Commission, you can look at Zoning Board. I would come up with where I was at on an issue, and he would come up with where he was at on an issue. And there were times where we disagreed on where we should be at. We would talk about it, and at the end of it, we'd say, okay, this is the best idea. Sometimes it might have been my stance, sometimes it might have been his stance, but we wanted to hash it out. We wanted to talk and say, you know what? We want to make sure that when we say this is what staff is recommending, that we understand what we're recommending and why we're recommending it. But yeah, there have been several times where we've come in with something and he's come in with something, and we've just talked it out to determine what we feel is the best stance.
Nice.
And
That's not how it goes with us.
what are you talking about?
Just kidding. I was like, that sounds so smooth.
She
and
makes
easy.
a suggestion. I just go, sure. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So it's
Sometimes it's the easiest way.
path
That
of,
is not
path
how
of
it
least
goes.
resistance,
That is
no
not
doubt
how
about
it
it.
goes.
When and again, Chuck had the gig for 30 years, and there were a lot of times where certain projects would fall into his lap that I was like, why has he got to get saddled with that? The hydroelectric project comes to mind first and foremost. But I think that now it looks like with this influx of retail that we've had over the last few years, it looks like the office has really stuck to its portfolio. That's what it is. It's a big portfolio already. It doesn't need anything else. But it looks like you've got a lot of irons in the fire already.
And that's, I think, the key to it. I mean, there's a lot of times, and I'm sure in the past, Chuck got stuff done. And so that was where they could come in with the project. A lot of times it's something from the administration. Hey, here's an idea we have. We'll give it to Chuck. Chuck, you run with it, see what you can do with it. A lot of times what we do now is, like you said, we've had so many. One of the things we've done a lot of are these development agreements. Not really a lot of them, but that's something we've worked on with the vacant anchor, different projects like that. So there's been so much of that going on. If the administration came forward and said, hey, we really want to see this happen, we would do the research, we would look at it and such. But I think that's the way it goes when you look at kind of in the past even, is saying, you know what, Chuck can figure it out. Chuck can get stuff done. Let's go there with it. Our office will still continue. We're kind of, if you look at it, almost like you could say research and development. They're going to say, here's an idea. Here's something we've heard another community doing. How would you look at that? Okay, we'll look at what other communities are doing. We'll try to do our research. Here's what we think of it. And then a lot of times, because we've done all that research, we understand it, that's when we present it to the city council and such. It's not, the administration may have brought the idea, a council member may have brought the idea. We've done the background for it. We know more of the information about it, so we bring it forward to them.
Real quick, too, the difference between like the planning and then the city engineer. City engineer is
Jeffrey Conti is the
Okay.
Public Works Director, and then Steve Bangy is the Engineering Manager.
And then what are those differences? Like, how does that work?
They are working a lot more on right-of-way, sewer, water.
Okay.
We're more on the, you need to rezone a property so that like each zoning district in the city, will get a little in the weeds here. Each zoning in the district in the city, there's certain types of projects you can do in them. You can have certain in commercial. Some commercial doesn't work in all commercial. So what we look at is someone would come to us and say, hey, I want to open this type of store. We'd say, well, in the area you want to be, that's not allowed. We'll help you change the zoning. We'll help you get a special permit for that, to subdivide for that. We're also looking at your comprehensive plan. A lot of times the neighborhood land use plan that we have, we're looking more at long term. How is this project going to impact Quincy now? How's it going to impact 5 years from now, 10, 20 years from now? That's what we're looking at. Utilities, engineering, and such, I mean, they are looking at streets, water, those immediate types of needs. We work with them hand in hand. When a project comes in, we do a review called a site plan review. Someone wants to come in and build a new manufacturing facility. We sit down with engineering, we sit down with other departments, look at it and say, okay, we look at drainage, we look at parking, everything like that. We're working hand in hand with them, the fire department. And then there's the building inspection side where they're looking at the actual construction plans. So it's all kind of an interweaving together. So we work with engineering a lot, but we have different realms that we work in.
When a major project comes, say, for example, when you an addition maybe out on the other side, the 1.5 mile area is kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What are the differences when people want to do something in that 1.5 mile zone as opposed to doing something in town? Because I know that people who live out there will be like, well, what's a city? I don't live in the city. Well, you still live in that area. I mean, and there are, again, you got 1.5 miles around the entire town. So what do people need to know who live out that area when they say, well, why is this happening here? And we don't live in the city. And what do you like? Why do you get to say what happens out here?
When I get that question, we get that a lot because people will come in and they'll say, someone told me I live outside of the city, but I'm coming in to talk to you. Why on earth is that? Because there's no zoning in Adams County, Quincy essentially has a buffer. You have a 1.5 mile buffer. And the idea of that is in the county, you could essentially have a manufacturing plant next to a house,
next to a hog
farm.
Yeah.
You could have that in a row. There's no designation. With zoning in place, our zoning extends beyond city limits into that 1.5 miles. And so when it extends into that direction, that is the goal of that is to be able to regulate and be able to say, look, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to have a manufacturing plant next to a house, next to a hog farm. So we have that control over that. But it's only for certain things. Nuisance does not go out that far. Stuff like that does not go out that far. It's zoning and it's building permits because we want to make sure that whatever is being constructed out there is following our building codes, and then whatever is going out there is following our zoning code so that you just don't have random items showing up in an area that maybe is an all residential area, and then all of a sudden you end up with a manufacturing plant next door to it. And so that's where some of the challenges come in is when we say, well, this area is really industrial in nature, but there might be a few homes nearby that have been there forever. They thought they were far enough away from town, but now they might have something looking industrial there. You have to balance out the future of that area saying, you know what, this is a really industrial area. This is a spot that would work for an industrial project versus there might be some residential homes nearby. That's one of the big things that the Plan Commission does. They give the opportunity for people to come in and say their piece about that. Hey, I don't want this out here by me. And then the Plan Commission makes their recommendation based on, well, staff might recommend a plant out here. The neighbors don't like it. We have to come up with an idea, and then it goes to the city council who has the final say. But it's really that idea of making sure you're protecting that land use where you're not you have more of an idea of what's going on, because outside of that 1.5 miles, anything can really go.
What's your day-to-day like now? I know you're only 9 days in, but what's your day-to-day like?
It's very similar to what it was. A lot of it is answering questions. I mean, we get emails, we get calls from developers, calls from realtors. Hey, I'd like to do this. Hey, I want to be able to do this. Hey, I want to be able to do this. A lot of it is answering that. More meetings, because Chuck would handle a lot of meetings, or I'd handle other meetings, and now I'm going to a lot more meetings. You just find the time. It's people just coming up to the door and saying they'll stop at the front desk. Hey, I want to do this, but I don't know how. What's the start? Okay, well, here you go. This is what you do. This is how you get a special permit. Or we have to sometimes say, you know what, that's not allowed. You can't do that. And then we have to explain. Sometimes they don't like that answer. We sometimes give answers that people don't like. We just explain it to them. And at least if they understand why, they may still not like it, but at least they're going to walk out knowing why they can't do something.
Do you ever find like some kind of ordinance, like when you're saying you can't do this because of this, that it's maybe like, I don't know, a stupid ordinance? And
we could,
and if so, do you guys have the power to change that, or how is that?
We have found, like, we will go through at times with our ordinance. Codes need to be updated from time to time. It's a lengthy process, and it's something that like our department would not be able to do on its own. You'd have to almost hire a company, which would mean you'd have to get the city council to go along with it. So what we do along the way, we just the other day passed an ordinance out of Plan Commission and the city council adopted it. We find little tweaks to it and say, okay, this doesn't make sense. Let's make this more easy to understand. There's an example of there's rules on how you can put signs along commercial properties. Mm-hmm. We would read that and we're sometimes confused by how we read it. There's no way the public can. So we went in there, rewrote it, created a chart. So now if you look at it, you can see if I have this much frontage, I can have this type of sign. This much, I can have this much. We try to do what we can in those regards if we find something. There's still, if you look through some of the uses in the zoning code, there are businesses that don't exist anymore. Sure. If we ever were going to go through and update that, there are certain things. Yoga studio is not in the code, but what we do is we say, well, it's similar. Dance studio is in the code, so we kind of count like those. A haberdashery is in the code.
What is it?
Hat shop.
Oh.
So
men's hats
like
and gloves.
You can't have one?
No, you can't. That it just says this is the area that you can have a haberdashery.
Shookings
so
is kind of a haberdashery.
What we do is say, if somebody comes in with an idea, let's see if we can match this up with something else, because not everything is going to be in the code, but we want to try to work with people as much as we can to help them see what they want to do and make sure they're in the right location to do it.
What about collecting rainwater? Is there an ordinance against that where you can't collect rainwater within the city?
That would be something I would tell you if you were to ask me that at the counter. I'd say, you know what, I'm going to refer you to our legal department because they know more about other parts of the code.
Don't you think that would be a stupid ordinance?
We have you were wanting to take calls.
No, we were just talking about the fires and stuff.
Right,
so
true.
that was my
but you
tie-in,
wanted to
sorry.
take calls. You want us to have the ability to take calls, right?
Yes.
We have a call. Caller number 1 is on the line. What's your question, caller?
Okay, so this is just really out of left field, but there is a house out of left field out there on Broadway. So there's Shop and Church House, Sam's, Menards. So how does that house then fit into those zones? Do you know which house I'm talking about? It's like the one lone house out there.
But next to Sam's Club,
Yeah.
That's the 54th Street development.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where the proposed 54. That property right now is zoned RU1.
Okay.
So that is zoned for rural use. I can tell you because you will see it on the agenda for Friday. The Otis Company has filed to rezone that property to commercial. So that will be considered by the Plan Commission on January 28th. So right now that property is rural. So you could not have any of the development that has been proposed for it. But that was part of the idea of it, is because everything else out there is what we call C2, our lingo that we use. That
Bingo.
It goes right over everybody's head.
What is it? Commercial?
General commercial.
Yeah.
If you look at the auto, the car lot, Sam's, they're all C2. It just would fit right into there for it. So that's why when the developer approached us about it, we said, you know what, that lot makes a lot of sense as general commercial. So if you wanted to propose commercial development there, that makes sense to us. We would support a rezoning of that property.
Now, does the Otis developer already own that property?
No, and that's one of the key things that we talk with people about when they go to the Plan Commission. We don't want somebody to buy a lot and get stuck with it if the zoning is not approved. So we will accept, we need you to have standing. We need you to be able to say, look, I'm not just speculating on this property. So they would provide us a purchase offer, contingent on zoning change, essentially. And then that way we know that if this zoning change is approved, their purchase will go forward, and it's not just being speculated. What we don't want is somebody to say, well, I want to rezone this property. They do it. They had no right to do anything with it, and now it's just going to sit there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I hope her microphone was on.
I think she turned it up.
Well,
Or not.
I think my voice
She's loud enough. Yeah, no. As a matter of fact, no. Now, look, she didn't turn it up, so that's okay. But I think that, you talk about the 54th Street, that's that a lot of people were, wondering about it and what's going to come and all that. And again, if you buy it and if you develop it, if you build it, that's, again, the tax incentives and all the other stuff, sales tax rebates, all the other things that are being, those are completely different issues. But if somebody wants to come in and say, hey, let's try to bring some stuff here, then you're going to try to accommodate them, right? Unless their idea is just whack.
And that's really the way of it. What a lot of times we find out, people think that our office is in charge of every single business that comes. If a business is zoned properly, they can just show up. I mean, a good example would be Ollie's. That property is zoned for that use. They weren't coming through our office to get a special permit or a zoning change or anything. The developer had worked to bring that business there. In this case, the developer reaches out to us and says, hey, look, I'm interested in this property. I want to do work on it. Any developer that shows up will say, okay, what are you wanting to do? They'll say, well, we can't tell you what exactly we want to do, but it's going to be retail. It's going to be commercial. It's going to be something like that. Okay. This property's not zoned, right? So if you want to do this, these are the steps that you have to take. We try to provide them the full blueprint so that they know, okay, if I want to work on this site, this is what I have to do. And then sometimes we will tell them, that idea is not going to work. You're wanting to put a manufacturing plant right next to a residential neighborhood. It's not going to happen. We can tell you that right now. A common call we get right now is solar farms. We just adopted the ordinance that says they should go in industrial areas. We still get calls wanting to put them right in the middle of residential neighborhoods. We're like, look, the city council just approved this. You can try to rezone it. It's probably not going to happen. If you would like to take the time and the effort, you can go ahead. But if somebody brings us an idea that we say, you know what, that's got a chance, that is something that could benefit Quincy, we're going to try to take every step we can to make the process as easy as we can for them. And one thing that's been beneficial, and we've heard it for the last few years, especially working with out-of-town developers, they're like, the process here in Quincy works so well. Like, you tell us what you're going to do, and then you do it, and then we're ready to go. And that has been beneficial with some of the bigger projects that we've been able to announce. It's taken a long time to get there, but it's because it's just been so many steps in the process. We try to make sure they're not waiting on us. That's one of our goals, is we don't want them waiting on us. We want them waiting on if they need state approval or something like that. We want the local side to be moving them as quickly ahead as we can.
It's a little off subject, but do you think the demeanor of the city council will change now that you're the one standing up there and presenting things? Like when you were just saying we don't want things stalling, I know our city council sometimes, I don't want to say they stall, but because I like the fact that, they ask questions, and I know a lot of times like ordinance have to be read 3 times, is it?
Yep.
But do you think the demeanor of things will change now that?
I don't think so, or I hope not. I am somebody, I come from a journalism background. I was a journalist for 16 years. I even sit there and answer questions all night. I asked questions all night in my previous life. I have no problem. I would rather somebody at least fully understand what is going on than anything else. That's the most important thing. If you still don't like something and you understand it, I've done my job. You know everything that I can tell you. You still don't like it, I can live with that. What I don't want it to be is, well, I didn't understand this, so I oppose it. That's what I want to avoid. So the council is going to do what the council does. I have great relationships with everybody on the council. Some of them I've worked more with because of committees and stuff, some of them less. But I'm one that asks me questions. If the people come to the office, they can ask me questions. I'm used to it on the other side, and I will try to make sure that you know what is going on, because that's the most important thing. Frustration grows when somebody does not understand what's going on. And that's when they can get frustrated, they get mad at the process. At least if you know what's going on and you're aware, if I've given you all the information I can, then hopefully you're not as frustrated at the city or at the process. You just may not like the answer.
And in your position, as is with, it should be with most city government issues, there's no politics really doesn't enter your world, does it?
No, I hope that it does not, because we are looking at it, a developer coming in, we don't know anything about them a lot of times. Like, they are just calling up and saying, hey, I'm interested in this. Then we start to do our research. We are not looking up their political party. We are not looking up anything like that. We're looking at, where have you developed? What have you built? What have you done? What do you bring to the table here for Quincy? Same thing with if I get a request from one alderman or the other, it doesn't matter what political party they're in. We're going to give them the answer that we feel that they need to have. We want them to have as much information as possible. How they use that information, that's up to them. But for us, we are not looking at any letter or anything behind your name. We're looking to give you the most information and the best information that we can, because that's what the city should be doing.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, again, and we've talked a lot about the whole issue of Quincy and a potential shift to nonpartisan city government. And again, it's really there's no reason to do so. But I know that when Chuck first became city planner, you had a Democratic mayor and you had a Democrat majority, and then as he left, it shifted, and so he was able to navigate that. And I know as soon as Kyle Moore was elected and became the first Republican mayor we'd had in 30 years or whatever, people were clamoring for Chuck to be fired, and Kyle was like, why? I don't know. There's no reason. Why would I do that? And there were moves that he made, and he did. Not everybody kept their job for one reason or the other, but in that case, Chuck was a guy who, and again, yeah, sure, in your job, you're in your honeymoon period now, but eventually you're going to piss somebody off.
Oh, yeah.
And Chuck made a lot of people mad over the years, but he also made a lot of people happy and got a lot of stuff done. So again, the whole DR thing isn't an issue at all. And the fact that I think it's very admirable that he was able to survive that shift, and a lot of city employees survived it. Some didn't. But I think in your case, going at it that way and to take it as a clear I'm not seeing any blue, red, whatever. I'm just trying to do my job and do what's best for the city. That's how city government should function as a whole.
Because when you go from administration to administration, you're essentially someone in that position in these types of jobs, be it public works, you're looking at institutional knowledge, you're looking at experience, it's not something that you can just say, well, I'm going to leave, he's going to leave today and you're going to come in and be ready to go right tomorrow.
No.
It's just not feasible because of everything that's going on in so many departments like that, and that's throughout the city. So
we have another question from the audience.
Okay. Again, this is just out of my own curiosity, but earlier you were talking about, looking at businesses coming to Quincy and are they good for our area? And I know in the past it used to be based on demographics, whether that's demographics coming from the developer side, or is it ever a question of, do our demographics support this business, or is it all just zoning?
Oh, no. Well, one of the things that we get asked about a lot, and people will say, is we have had so many businesses coming in here. Staffing is something that is raised a lot. Is there enough people to staff that? One of the things that we look at is if they are willing to come here. We're not in charge of their staffing goals. If they believe they can come here, we've learned a lot through working in working with different developers, just sitting down and talking to them about their process. Businesses chase businesses. You would think it might be the opposite. Well, if such and such business ended up here, I don't want to compete with them. And instead, it's they want to chase. If my competitor is in this market, I need to be in this market. And that's one of the questions we get is, how do you staff these? For the city, that's not something we're wanting to make sure that they have every opportunity to locate here. How they function, how they operate, that's up to them. If they believe they can find the staffing and they believe that they can achieve what they need to here in Quincy, we are ready for them.
Brittany just wants to know where they're all going to live since we got the housing issue.
No, and then I also think of, but like kind of taken away from the pie, but like you said, it's not the city's problem, but I think it would be the city's problem in the long run if we can't sustain or support like our original businesses. Again, I know it's not the city's problem and businesses chase businesses, but there's only so much to the pie.
The scary part, if you're in a position like where I'm at, is if all of a sudden you start saying, we don't want new business here, because then they stop calling.
Okay.
That's the scary part, is if developer A is doing this and they're told, well, we don't need your business here, we can't handle having your business here. Developer B may say, oh, I don't want to do it. And developer C, we can't be seen as somebody saying, well, we can't handle that many businesses, because as soon as you say that, somebody else that might have been interested is no longer going to be interested. And then you have what you have here, but you're not getting those outside and those additional views at your community. We want to be able to present Quincy in a way that everyone wants to be here. how we figure out that happens. We figure that out. But you want to make sure you're a place that they want to be and not somewhere that doesn't want them.
That goes back to the old urban legend that when we had Motorola, there were other large businesses that wanted to come to town that the city fathers allegedly said no because they didn't want to be fighting over employers or whatever. And then after Motorola left, it was like, oh boy, we use some more jobs now. So Caterpillar, that's always been the big rumors that we told Caterpillar to go away. So now Caterpillar might have left us eventually because they have really downsized in Peoria and moved a lot of stuff to Chicago. But again, I just don't think. I think for somebody like Amazon to come to town, that's a good thing for this community. For all these other businesses, it's a good thing. I think Greta said the other day, 65 new businesses are coming in. Great, that's what we want.
How many closed?
I don't know, but we have 65 new ones.
Sorry.
If you know what, survival of fittest.
I guess.
It does kind of sound. Sorry, caller number 3.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah. Okay, so all of this being said, we know Bevelheimer was amazing. He was here for a really long time. He's probably still going to be helping you on certain things. Hopefully, maybe if you ever need to reach out, I have no doubt that he's there. Anything that you look at, and it doesn't have to be super specific, that you want to maybe, that you see as room for opportunity?
Chuck, you were terrible at this. I'm going to do this better. What would that be?
No, the one thing, and I've said it, and it is something, and it's going to be a long-term goal. I want people to be able to look at the zoning code without having us have to interpret it. How that happens, I don't know. But being able to have
Make
somebody
a clear zoning map.
Yeah.
Like a super kindergarten style zoning map.
Well, we have the zoning map it says it has everything that it needs, like basically the colors and such. We've got that updated and such. What it comes down to is someone will read a section of the code, and even us will say, okay, let me think about that for a little bit. Because there are some parts we use regularly. We know that. There are other parts of the code you never use. It would be wonderful if people would just be able to read it and say, okay, this makes sense, and now they call us because they know what they want to do because of that. Well, that's one thing, because that is making it more user-friendly. Obviously, improving our ability to have stuff on the website for people to be able to see. That is something that we would also be able to. That it's not something we can just do. We have to. It's part of the whole city website, but that is something that we would want to be able to see too. It's really trying to make a better opportunity for everybody out there who doesn't spend their day looking at zoning codes. I mean, I've read the code enough. You go through it, and I even have to sit there and say, what am I doing here, and what am I looking for here? Somebody out there that is just wanting to know if they can do this business or they can do that, they don't have any idea. It should be where they can read that and say, okay, I understand, I get it. That's a goal. How long it takes, how we get there, because it's all just stuff in there for most people. But it'd be great if people could read that and say, that makes sense. I understand that. That's one of the goals. Having better access online. That's another thing too, because a lot of the questions we get would say, let me email you this. And then they've got it, and then they understand. If they could pull that off the website, that would be a great thing too. So those are some of the things that we will strive for, is to try to be more user-friendly, try to be more, I guess you'd say, customer, resident, however you would want to say, the public. So,
okay, my last thing. Okay. It's more of a statement than anything. So Bevy taught me how to fill out my first paper FOIA in my school of journalism of Bob and Dave. Where did you go to journalism school?
I went to Western for my undergrad. I did an undergrad in communications and history. And then I went to the University of Illinois Springfield. There's a program called the PAR program, Public Affairs Reporting. Paul Simon started that program.
Yep, great program.
I went through. I was one of, and you can tell just in the realm of putting on my old journalism hat. When I went through that program, there were 20 of us in there. We were spread out throughout the State Bureau. I worked with Illinois Public Radio, and I got to follow along with people like John O'Connor, Doug Finke, Bill Wheelhouse, Sean Crawford. I'm naming names that Bob's going to rattle off.
Yep.
Ray
Paul
Long.
Simon, the
senator, not the singer.
Oh, because the whole time I'm like,
No.
Kodachrome.
And
No.
so we,
Mama, don't
we
take my
Paul Simon.
Kodachrome.
Bow tie.
It's just going
Senator.
to my head.
so I spent
Owned newspapers.
So as part of my grad school and getting my master's degree in that was spent covering the Illinois legislature. And I was there the first year for Rod Blagojevich. So we were part of the intern crew that
Good
would
times.
follow him around. And it was a fascinating time to be down there. But now that program maybe has 8 or 9. Instead of having 20 of us going through it, there's like 8 or 9 because there's just not that many people covering state
I was
government
there
anymore.
6 weeks, 2 months ago for a thing at the Capital News Illinois held a thing for all the people who utilize their service, and some of their students were there and stuff. And yeah, and you got to talk to a lot of Bernie. Bernie gave a talk, and Steve Brown and some other people.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. But you're right. I mean, it's and I want to applaud the state for the journalism tax credit that they're now offering. We just applied for that, and I think it's something that's going to help us out a lot. We're already trying to add employees and grow and do all that, but we've also got partners who believe in the mission. So again, I think that a lot of time, one thing I appreciate, knowing the background that you have, that when David or me or Brittany or somebody asks you a question, we're just doing your jobs. And again, Chuck was great to deal with 99.5% of the time, and mostly it was just the hydro stuff that we had our issues on because it was just he just got that foisted upon him. But he was always a professional to deal with. I know you will be. And again, I think it's just a matter of we're just here asking questions, and that.
And that's one of the things that I appreciate, that because there are some people that if a reporter starts asking questions, they just get real, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And I'm like, they're trying to get the story. They're trying to get more answers. If I give you a good answer, then you may not have to ask another question.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing. It's like, if you guys know what's going on, you have a realm to be able to update people as to what is going on. I mean, I'm sitting in my office. There's not much I can do in my office to inform people, but when I can come on something like this and say, here's what's going on, and this is why you should know about it, this is a forum that can really benefit in that. And understanding what you all do it helps me in that, because I know they're not doing this they're not out of anger, out of spite. They're doing it because that's what they do. They try to inform.
You good?
I'm always good.
Anything else from the audience before we go?
A last caller.
No, I think good luck, man.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're in this position. I didn't know that you were up for it, but I'm happy to see you in that seat. I think you're going to do great things.
I appreciate it.
Will you hit 30 years?
What is my age now? I don't think I'm going to be to that point here, but I hope to be able to have a good, solid career here, as everybody would, and I hope to each day do a little bit better and to help inform people a little bit more.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very
Cheers
much.
to that.
Thanks for having me.